brave words. Unfortunately for you, it won't end here. Your journey has just begun.
I'll hunt you to the ends of the earth if I have to. Do you hear me? To the ends of the earth!
So, the light's vaunted justice has finally arrived. Shall I lay down Frostmourne and throw myself at your mercy, Fordring?
We'll grant you a swift death, Arthas. More than can be said for the thousands you've tortured and slain.
You'll learn of that firsthand. When my work is complete, you will beg for mercy, and I will deny you. Your anguished cries will be testament to my unbridled power.
You are fools who have come to this place!
So be it. Champions, attack!
Icecrown Citadel has been raided, and the heroes of Azeroth, along with Tyrion Fordring and others, have failed. All the heroes of Azeroth were defeated and razed by the Lich King and unleashed upon the world. In this video, we'll be following the main World of Warcraft timeline and follow each expansion as they happened, and with a little thought, research, and a lot of creative liberties, decide how exactly this new world would play out with future events. But before we get into the expansions, let's go over what would happen immediately after the fall of the High Lord and Azeroth's heroes. No doubt the Lich King would want his citadel cleared, because there's like a whole bunch of people in it that he don't want there, living people to be specific. So of course he would send his newest undead soldiers through and wipe out all Alliance and Horde forces, including the Argent Crusade, I guess. The Argent Dawn and the Ebon Knights, everybody who is not undead is dead. Like, they die. Okay. I think his first move in world domination would be to root out the Argent Crusade from Northrend as a whole. Just all of them gone. So he'd be sending out his forces across the continent to purge it of the living. First, specifically targeting high-populated areas like the Argent Tournament Grounds, the Argent Vanguard, the Argent Stand, Winterguard Keep, and the Shadow Vaults, and of course, Dalaran. The Argent threat would be the first to rid himself of, followed by some mindless undead being sent to other places like Valiant's Keep, Warsong Hold, Ebon Watch, and of course the Valguard would be attacked with a no doubt renewed pact of the Vrykul. All this would happen simultaneously. So aside from some mages that created portals for people to escape through back home, Northrend would essentially go dark. Anyone that managed to survive were in small pockets around the region. For example, I could see the Quel'Dorei and Windrunner's Overlook could stay hidden and hold out for a while, maybe at the least. Unless, of course, they evacuated to Stormwind through Dalaran with everyone else. Now that Northrend is taken care of, up to the task is the rest of the world. As for now, we're ignoring all of these in the middle, they're not relevant right now. We're just focusing on the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor. For those who remember the Wrath of Lich King pre-patch event, the Lich King had launched invasions all across Azeroth, not just the main Alliance and Horde cities, but also other high-level places like Blasted Lands and Tanaris. So I'd imagine he'd do exactly that, launching invasions across the world, but instead of a bunch of mindless zombies with a few spiders and dark casters, now he has the unrelenting force, the most powerful army ever brought together on Azeroth, which is us, the players, fighting and going to these areas to bring ruin to the old world. Within weeks, Arthas would have wiped out all, if not 90% of life on Azeroth. Assuming he raised some of the dead around the world, he would have an army of undead that would give even the Legion a run for their money. Next would be the expansions. I think it's pretty obvious that the expansion won't play out exactly as they do in the main timeline. So after some thinking, I think Deathwing, considering Deathwing, I think although he no longer is dealing with humans and orcs and all of that, he would probably still break through the Maelstrom and fulfill the Hour of Twilight thanks to the Old Gods. With that being said, I'd like to think that each aspect would be holding out in their respective homes, the respective areas where they hang, you know? I don't think they're too powerful to be immediately wiped out by just undead. I think they'd have to go face to face with the Lich King to do that. And I just don't think he's willing to do that right away. You know, he kind of wants to sit back and enjoy his new world. Definitely doesn't have the support of Cho'Gall and the Twilight Hammer because, you know, they're dead. But I'd like to think that he could use this to his advantage and convince the other aspects to join him in his mission. See, this is what the people of Azeroth did to themselves. This is what they let happen. They let death take over. Even without me, they ended up destroying themselves and the world. Now, I don't think all the aspects would join him. I don't think they'd immediately join him. In fact, in the long run, I don't think they'd join him, period, on this mission. But considering this scenario and the way how most of the world is just dead, I'd like to think that there is a moment, even just a brief moment of consideration. Now, I think maybe being the only ones to their knowledge still alive, they could come together and agree on one thing. Return to the Dragon Isles. And I think this robs us of an epic clash between Arthas and Deathwing, but you know, maybe a little bit more down the road we'll be able to see that. Alright, Mist of Pandaria. Taking from the Book of Burdens, epilogue, seeing that all things were connected in an eternal whole, and that his beloved land was more than just the Pandaren Empire, Xiao Hao at last understood. His staff clattered to the floor, and his spirit became one with the land. When the world tore itself apart, Pandaria drifted quietly into the ocean. And as the Emperor's robes fluttered empty to the ground, the land became enveloped in impenetrable mist, hidden away from the rest of the world. Now remember, the only reason we found out about Pandaria was because our ships, Horde Alliance ships, ran aground on the shores of the Jade Forest. So, no Horde, no Alliance, and I don't think Arthas would be sending Necropolis mindlessly flying around the Great Sea looking for things. So all that being said, Pandaria remains untouched and undiscovered, still wrapped peacefully in their mists. Warlords of Dranor. Pretty simple. Due to there being no cataclysm, Rathian was never discovered or possibly never conceived. I know that sounds dark. Or maybe he was, but he was just taught like the regular red dragon aspect things, and he most likely died to just the overflow of Scourge undead and stuff. So there is no Rathian, there is no Mr. Pandaria tie-in where he sees the coming of the Legion. There is no Garrosh, and all other Alliance and Horde leaders are most likely dead at this point, so WoD is irrelevant. Legion. This is the one that I'm pretty sure some of you were waiting for. With the deal made by Alexstrasza, the Legion still invades the Broken Shores, pretty much the same way it played out in the main timeline. With its people putting up a good fight, I doubt that the Legion would completely take over, fully capture and control the whole of Broken Isle, but they definitely would have more ground gained than in the main timeline. Now, this wouldn't catch Arthas' attention just yet. At first, I thought I could bring Arthas in with the Army of the Light when they arrived on Azeroth, but after doing some backtracking, the only reason they arrived on Azeroth is because the Prime Naru, Zira, sent the Light's Heart in response to a plea from Prophet Velen. Prophet Velen at this point is no longer alive. So no Prophet Velen, no Army of the Light. But don't worry, there's more here. With the arrival of the Burning Legion, Sargeras has had a score to settle with the planet and the Old Gods. The Old Gods knew this and probably turned their little whispers into Deathwing into screams as he tried to get Nefarian to fight against the Legion. In defense of what life was left on Azeroth in Alexstrasza's view, the other aspects join Nefarian as they launch attacks on the Broken Isle. This being the first time they've all fought on the same side together in centuries. Of course, now this is a war between the aspects and the Legion, which would draw the Lich King's attention. But I think he would decide to wait. Wait and see who wins the war, which would most likely be the Burning Legion. Then he'd move in, raise some new undead dragons like Santiago, and finish them off, or at least figure out a way to push them back off of his planet. And of course, in that endeavor, completely consume and destroy the Broken Isles as a whole, like he did the rest of Azeroth. Or at least the rest of the known world of Azeroth. Alright, battle for Azeroth. It's pretty simple. The Katirans and the Zandalari trolls are perfectly happy in their own homes, unless the use of the light somehow attracts Arthas's attention, which I don't think is a thing. Which brings me to a new point. I think the Naru, whomever it would be, whichever one at some point, it doesn't matter at this point, would reach out to the Paladin trolls in Zandalar, kind of let them know about what's going on in the rest of the world, and that they're pretty much alone at this point. Being brought to this truth, the trolls would probably just bring this to King Rostakon, but I feel like he'd ignore it. As long as the Scourge didn't make a move on them and his kingdom, he was content to let the world burn as long as his kingdom was not threatened by it. Shadowlands. Alright, here we go. You ready for this one? You ready? You're gonna lose your mind. Without Sylvanas being alive to pull this BS, the Shadowlands conflict never occurred. There you have it. Congratulations. I fixed it. I fixed it. It never happened. It never happened. We can forget all about it. It never happens. Alright, Dragonfly. The events of Dragonfly pretty much happened all together on their own. Like, there wasn't really any outside influences other than Deathwing not being there. So, now that he is, if they happened, like the ones that we saw, if they happened, if at all, it happened sooner in the timeline, like as soon as all four arrived, and I assume none of them really got anywhere because Nefarian was there to sort it all out. So if anything, you just had like judgment battles and silent judging and judging looks between the different aspects as they all knew exactly what Deathwing did, while his followers were like, but no, he's just a loving dad. So there really wouldn't be much here, except for like them fighting the Legion on behalf of the old gods, at least for Nefarian, and on the other side, on behalf of what life is left on Azeroth with the rest of them. And now we catch up to current day, the War Within. Considering the War Within deals somewhat with the Titans again, the Lights, the Nerubians, I feel like they would be absolutely slaughtered by the Scourge. And here's why. The Nerubians, being allied with the Lich King, by now have had to find a replacement for a new Barak. I think there would have been a link somewhere between them and the Old Kingdom that we see in this expansion, somewhere in their long history. I don't think it's insane to assume that at some point during all this, they would find a link and tunnel their way to the Old Kingdom of Azket, and of course talk with the Queen, and using Arthas's very persuasive skills, you know, they would join him, and together they would destroy Hollowfall, slaughter every Arathi that uses the light, and therefore the dwarves on the Isle of Dorn would be next, with the last bastion probably being in the Ringing Deeps. Khazalgar would be another victim fallen to the Lich King. That's it, that's all I got. That's my if the Lich King had won. Thank you for watching the video. Leave a comment, let me know what you thought. Maybe once the new expansion comes out, I can update this, add to it. So whenever you're watching this, I hope you've having or will have a good day. See ya.